I should have known better than to trust my parents. I really should have, but family's family, right? That's what I always told myself. My name is Amber. I'm 32. And I'm about to tell you how my entire life fell apart because I couldn't say no to the people who should have loved me the most. Derek and I had been married for 8 years. We had 2 kids, a house in the suburbs, and what looked like a pretty decent life from the outside. He worked in some kind of consulting. I never really paid attention to the details, and I did something with marketing. It paid the bills. The thing about Derek is that he's always been working on himself. Therapy, boundaries, self-awareness, all that stuff. Sometimes it was exhausting. Honestly, can't we just live without analyzing every little feeling? But that was Derek, Mr. Growth-oriented, always trying to be better. My parents were the complete opposite. They lived in the moment, consequences be damned. They were fun, exciting, and completely unreliable. Growing up with them was like being on a roller coaster that never stopped. One minute, everything was great. The next minute, the electricity was shut off because they forgot to pay the bill. But they were my parents. What was I supposed to do? The trouble started when they mentioned they wanted to visit some friends in Canada. We haven't seen them in years. My mom said over the phone, and we'd love for you and the kids to come along. It would be such a wonderful family trip. Derek was hesitant. That's a long drive with the kids, he said, and wouldn't it be easier to fly? Oh, we don't like to fly, my mom said smoothly, and the drive is part of the adventure. Besides, we have some things to bring our friends. Things you can't easily take on a plane. I should have caught that. The warning sign, but I didn't. I just thought they were being eccentric as usual. We'd love to go, I told her, ignoring Derek's raised eyebrow. A week before the trip, my parents came over for dinner. They brought this red duffel bag with them. This is for our friends, my mom said, handing it to me. Could you take it in your car? Ours is getting pretty full with all the shopping we've been doing. I took it without thinking. It seemed innocent enough. Just a bag. Derek watched the whole exchange with a funny look on his face. Later that night, he brought it up. Did your parents say what was in that bag? He asked. No. Why? I replied, already getting defensive. It's probably just gifts or something. It seemed heavy, he said, and they were really specific about you taking it. Oh my God. Derek, I said, rolling my eyes. Not everything is a conspiracy. They're my parents. They're not smuggling drugs or something. I didn't say they were, he said calmly. I just thought it was a little strange. This was typical Derek. Always questioning things. Always looking for hidden meanings. Sometimes I wished he could just relax and go with the flow. The day of the trip arrived. We packed up the car kids. Snacks, entertainment, and the red duffel bag. Derek insisted on putting it in the trunk himself, which I found a little odd, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. We were about 10 minutes from the Canadian border when Derek suddenly tensed up. Turn the car around, he said, his voice tight. What? I asked, laughing. Why, now, Amber, he said, not taking his eyes off the road. Turn around. I looked at him, confused. Derek, what are you talking about? We're almost there. The kids are excited. Please, he said, and there was something in his voice that made me pay attention. Just trust me on this. I took the exit, my heart pounding. What was going on? Are you going to tell me what this is about? I asked once we were on a different road. Derek didn't answer right away. He just kept driving, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I need to check something, he finally said, pulling into a deserted parking lot. Stay here. He got out and went to the trunk. I watched in the rearview mirror as he unzipped the red duffel bag. His shoulders slumped, and then he zipped it back up and returned to the car. We need to get rid of this bag, he said, his voice shaking slightly. What? Why? What's in it? I asked, my stomach twisting. Derek looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and fear. Drugs. Amber, there are drugs in that bag. Your parents were using us to smuggle drugs into Canada. I stared at him, unable to process what he was saying. No, that's impossible. They wouldn't do that. They did, Derek said firmly, and we need to decide what to do right now. I felt like I was going to be sick. My own parents had put me, my husband, and my children in danger. How could they? We need to confront them, I said, my voice trembling. No, Derek said. We need to get rid of the evidence and then decide how to handle this. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You want to just let them get away with this? I want to protect our family, Derek said, which is more than your parents seem to care about. That stung, but I couldn't really argue with him. We drove to a remote wooded area and got rid of the bag, burying it deep in the forest. Neither of us spoke the entire way back home. When we got home, I called my parents. What happened? My mom asked when I told her we'd turn back. We were expecting you hours ago. We need to talk, I said. In person. An hour later, they were at our door, all smiles and concern. What's wrong? Sweetie? My mom asked. Hugging me, I pulled away. What was in the bag? The smile vanished from her face. What bag? The red duffel bag you gave me. I said, my voice rising. The one you asked me to take to Canada. My dad stepped forward. It was just some gifts for our friends. Honey, nothing to worry about. Don't lie to me, I said, tears welling in my eyes. I know what was in that bag. My parents exchanged a look. Derek put you up to this. Didn't he? My mom said, her voice turning cold. He's always been suspicious of us. Always trying to turn you against your own family. No, Mom, I said, shaking my head. He was trying to protect us. From you. How dare you? My dad said, his face turning red. After all we've done for you. This is how you repay us? Repay you for what? I shot back. For using us as drug mules. For putting your grandchildren in danger. That's not what happened. My mom said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. You're misunderstanding everything. Derek's filling your head with lies. I looked at them, really looked at them, and saw nothing but manipulation and denial. They would never admit what they'd done. Never take responsibility. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Amber, honey, my mom said, reaching for me. Don't, I said, stepping back. Just go. They left. But not before my mom shot Derek a look of pure hatred. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. A few days later, I got a call from my brother. Mom and Dad are pretty upset, he said. They think Derek's controlling you, turning you against them. I sighed. They're the ones who tried to use us to smuggle drugs. Ryan, are you sure about that? He asked. Because they're saying Derek made the whole thing up. That he's abusive and controlling. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You believe them. I don't know what to believe, Ryan said. But I know Mom and Dad would never do anything to hurt you or the kids. I hung up, feeling sick. My own brother was buying into their lies. Derek found me crying in the bathroom. What's wrong? He asked, sitting down next to me. I told him about the conversation with Ryan. They're turning everyone against us, I said, wiping my eyes, making me look like the bad guy. Derek put his arm around me. We know the truth. That's what matters. But it wasn't that simple. Over the next few weeks, I got calls from aunts, uncles, cousins, all of them saying the same thing. That Derek was controlling me, that he was turning me against my family, that I needed to wake up and see what was happening. Even my own kids started asking questions. Why don't we see Grandma and Grandpa anymore? My 7-year-old daughter asked one day. They're not well right now. I lied, hating myself for it. But the worst part was that I started to doubt myself. Maybe Derek was overreacting. Maybe my parents hadn't known what was in the bag. Maybe I was blowing this whole thing out of proportion. I started picking fights with Derek, accusing him of overreacting, of not trusting me, of trying to isolate me from my family. I'm trying to protect us. He said, his voice calm but firm. Your parents put us in danger. They're trying to avoid responsibility by turning everyone against us. They're my parents? I shot back. They would never hurt me. They already did, Derek said quietly. That shut me up. But it didn't change how I felt. I was torn between the man I married and the family I'd known my whole life. Things came to a head when my parents showed up at the kids' school one afternoon. Unannounced, I got a call from the school office. Your parents are here to pick up the kids, the secretary said. Is that okay? No, I said, my heart pounding. It's not okay. I'm on my way. I raced to the school, but I was too late. My parents had already taken the kids, telling the school I had asked them to pick them up. When I got to their house, the kids were sitting on the couch, eating ice cream and watching a movie. My parents were beaming at them like they were the perfect grandparents. What are you doing? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. We just wanted to spend some time with our grandkids. My mom said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Is that a crime? You know, it's not about that, I said, gathering the kids' things. You can't just show up at their school and take them without permission. We had permission, my dad said, from you. We told the school you asked us to pick them up. I never said that, I said, my voice rising. See, my mom said to the kids, Mommy's forgetting things again. That's what happens when you let someone control your thoughts. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took the kids and left, ignoring their protests. That night, Derek and I had a huge fight. We need to get away from here. He said, move somewhere they can't find us. Run away. I said, incredulous. That's your solution. They're not going to stop. Amber, Derek said, his voice tight. They're going to keep manipulating you, turning people against us, using the kids to get to you. We need to get out. And go where? I shot back. Start over somewhere new. Leave everything behind. Yes, Derek said simply. If it means keeping our family safe. I couldn't believe what he was asking. You want me to leave my job? My friends? My entire life because of your suspicions about my parents. They're not suspicions. Amber, Derek said, his frustration showing. We found drugs in that bag. They tried to use us as mules. They're lying to everyone about what happened. How much more evidence do you need? But I wasn't ready to listen. I was too caught up in my own denial, too afraid to admit that my parents were capable of such betrayal. We're not moving, I said firmly. This is our home. We'll figure out another way. Derek looked at me, disappointment in his eyes. I hope you're right, he said. For our kids' sake. Things calmed down for a while after that. My parents backed off, giving us some space. I thought maybe we'd gotten through to them, that they realized they'd gone too far. I should have known better. A month later, I came home to find Derek talking to 2 police officers in our living room. My stomach dropped. What's going on? I asked, my voice trembling. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, we need to ask you some questions about your parents. I looked at Derek, confusion turning to dread. What about them? They were arrested earlier today, the officer said. They were caught attempting to cross the border with a significant quantity of illegal substances. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What? They're claiming that you and your husband were involved, the officer continued. That you've been part of their operation for months. That's not true, I said, shaking my head. We had nothing to do with it. We know, Derek said, putting his arm around me. We told them everything about the bag, about turning around, about getting rid of it. I stared at him, realization dawning. You told them without talking to me first. I had to, Amber, Derek said. They were trying to implicate us. I had to protect our family. I felt a mix of relief and betrayal. Relief that Derek had taken care of it, but betrayal that he'd gone behind my back. The officers left after taking our statements, assuring us that we weren't suspects. But the damage was done. My parents were facing serious charges, and they were blaming us. Over the next few weeks, the full extent of my parents' operation came to light. They'd been smuggling drugs for years, using family members and friends as unwitting mules. We weren't the first, and we wouldn't have been the last. My brother called me, furious. How could you do this to them? He yelled. They're facing 20 years in prison. Because of you. Me, I said, incredulous. They're the ones who broke the law. They're the ones who tried to use us. You could have just destroyed the evidence and kept your mouth shut. Ryan shot back. But no, you had to play the hero. Well, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family? He hung up before I could respond. Other family members called, texted, and emailed, all saying the same thing. That I had betrayed my parents, that I was a terrible daughter, that I would get what was coming to me. Derek tried to be supportive, but I could see the distance growing between us. He was disappointed in me, in my refusal to fully accept what my parents had done, in my hesitation to cut ties with them completely. I just don't understand how you can still defend them, he said one night, after I'd gotten off the phone with yet another relative accusing me of ruining our parents' lives. I'm not defending them, I said. Defensive. I just think everyone's overreacting. It's not like they were violent criminals or something. They were drug smugglers. Amber, Derek said, his voice tight. They put their own grandchildren in danger. How is that not a big deal? I didn't have an answer for that. The final straw came when Derek sat me down and told me he was leaving. I can't do this anymore, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. I can't live with someone who won't acknowledge the truth, who won't protect our family from people who have proven they can't be trusted. You're leaving me? I said, tears welling in my eyes. Because of my parents? Because of your refusal to see them for who they are. Derek corrected. Because you care more about protecting them than about protecting our family. That's not true, I said. But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. Derek moved out the next week, taking the kids with him. I was alone in our big house, surrounded by silence and regret. I tried to blame Derek, to tell myself he was overreacting, that he was being unreasonable. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had chosen my parents over my husband, over my children, over my own family. And now I was paying the price. My parents were sentenced to 15 years in prison. My brother and the rest of my family wanted nothing to do with me. Derek filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. I lost everything. My husband, my kids, my family, my home. All because I couldn't admit that my parents were toxic. Dangerous people who didn't care about anyone but themselves. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had listened to Derek that day, if I had turned around without question, if I had cut ties with my parents when I first discovered what they'd done. Would we still be together? Would my kids still have both parents in their lives? But I didn't, and now I'm alone, paying the price for my denial, my weakness, my refusal to see the truth. I don't regret standing up to my parents. Not really. They deserve what they got. But I do regret losing my family, losing Derek, losing the life we could have had. If only I had been stronger. If only I had been willing to see the truth. If only I had chosen my husband over my parents. But I didn't, and now I'm alone, with nothing but regret and the knowledge that I brought this all on myself.